Mark Rogers TV talking SEC football and one of many huge matchups in the SEC Western Division just this week and then going through the rest of the season. I think we're just going to see this over and over and over because there's so many good teams in that division. We bring in Ben George, Tide 99-1, breakdown, of course, Ole Miss hosting Alabama. Ben, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, Mark, I'm looking forward to this weekend. I'm going over to Oxford, but I kind of wish this is one of those weekends you wish you could just kind of stay at home, park it on the couch, and flip from game to game because there's a lot of good ones.
Yeah, there's like 12 or 14 like decent games. Then there's like 4 or 5 that you almost have to see. It's one of those weekends. And just the depth in the SEC West, yeah, we're just going to see this over and over for the rest of the year pretty much, and it's going to definitely weed itself out. So we start with the Rebs and the Tide. Cody Prewitt, one of the best DBs in college football, comes out and makes a comment earlier this week that Alabama's not as good as they typically are. Do we read anything into that? Of course, we know that Ole Miss talked it up a little bit heading to Tuscaloosa last year, and that didn't turn out so well.
Yeah, I think people just wanted to hop on a headline more than anything because what he said was, pretty accurate. I think that this Alabama team isn't as good as some of the teams in the past. That's pretty much what he said. I don't read too much into it. I don't think he was taking a shot at Alabama per se. I think he was just saying, look, we got as good a chance as any to beat Alabama this year because they're not quite as good as they have been when they've been blowing us out. So I think that's kind of more what it is. But, yeah, when you had Bo Wallace saying that they could move the ball and score on Alabama last year and then he comes to Tuscaloosa and can't do anything, shut out, then you think that they might be a little quieter heading into the week and just game plan, focused on what they have to do for this game.
All right, Ben, let's start Alabama offense versus Ole Miss defense. And this is going to be fascinating because the Rebs bring back 9 or 10 starters from a defense that was pretty darn good last year. And like Memphis isn't great, but they went out to the Rose Bowl and put up 35 points, and Ole Miss just stuffed them. 100 yards offense, less than a yard rushing, 3 points on the board. Alabama hits up Florida, and I know the Gators have issues, and they're not typically what they've been in the past and all that, but the defense has to be good. I just think that Florida defense is going to show itself at some point. 645 yards. So strength versus strength here, and Blake Sims making his first real, true road start.
Yeah, and it's amazing, Mark. Nick Saban is averaging the most plays offensively that any of his teams have ever done. 73 plays per game right now. It's early, as some of the weaker opponents in the schedule, but that still says a lot. And they've been doing it pretty effectively in executing that offense under Lane Kiffin. So I do think that that's going to be the biggest question in this game because Alabama can't afford to make turnovers like they did against Florida. Ole Miss has the second most takeaways in the conference, so they can get the ball. And look, Ole Miss, as good as their offense has kind of been, and that's where a lot of the hype gets because they got some really good playmakers. Their defense has anchored this team, and it's a reason why they're as good as they are right now and why they're undefeated. They could have easily lost that game last week if that defense hadn't played as well as it did. So I'm interested to see if anybody can take away Amari Cooper because we thought Florida would with Hargraves. We thought they had as good a chance as any, but Cooper exploited that defense. And if they do, DeAndre White's questionable, so that other option on the outside will take away a little bit for Blake Sims. But I think we saw Alabama's running game start to make some progress last week, and or 2 weeks ago, they really wore down Florida. And I think that Alabama will try to get back to that a little bit more in this game and really try to exploit the running backs that they have.
And on the flip side, Bo Wallace is playing the biggest game of his career, as is just about everybody on the field for the Rebels. He's a dual-threat quarterback, all sorts of talent, really good player, but 6 picks this year. That's indicative of the way he's played during his starting time at Ole Miss, and he really needs to tighten things up for the Rebs to have a chance.
Yeah, no question. You're right on, Mark, with that. Bo Wallace, which quarterback is he going to be on Saturday? Because he's looked really good at times, and he's looked completely lost at others. And a couple of those were matchups against Alabama. He's had 2 of his worst games have been against Alabama in his career. Now he's got a third opportunity here at home. The first time he's played at home, the previous 2 games were in Tuscaloosa. So this is his opportunity, but he's coming off a sloppy game. I don't know how much confidence he has coming into the game. Honestly, if he gets off to a slow start, I think it's over for Ole Miss early. That first quarter, they got to get out and show to themselves so that they can move the ball a little bit and score some points against this Alabama defense, even if it's just a field goal. Get on the board, put some points up, put a little pressure back on Alabama, kind of loosen if they can get loose on offense a little bit and feel confident, they have a chance to move the ball because Alabama's secondary is still not where it needs to be at this point. They've improved each week. They've had a bye week, so I think you'll see a little bit more progress out of them, but that's still their weakness. Now, and Ole Miss can throw the football. If they can execute and take advantage, they'll be able to move the ball and score some points against Alabama against the secondary.
The thing about the Rebels, though, in support of Bo Wallace, they're not running the football. They're last in the SEC, I believe, or 13th in the SEC in rushing right now against marginal competition. And I think he's really going to need that support, and there's no indication that he's going to get a running game to back him.
Yeah, you make a good point. They have not run the ball effectively at all, and that'll allow Alabama to really just try to take away the passing game and try to confuse Bo Wallace when he has to make decisions because he's a guy. I mean, we've seen it. He's almost like a Jay Cutler where he can look. I won't say his arms. He's not the same passer that Jay Cutler is, but he's a guy that when he makes that mistake, he just keeps compounding. It seems like so he's got to avoid that. But yeah, if they can get any kind of running game, which I don't really think that they will be able to establish an effective attack, maybe they might be able to get 100 yards on the ground. I don't think that's going to be the spot that they focus on. It's all about passing game for Ole Miss in this one. They need to be able to pass the ball, and they can move it against the secondary. I think the running game, as much as you want it to be a part of it, I don't think it's going to be a factor in this ball game for Ole Miss.
I think Ole Miss is a legit team. I think they're one of the 15 best teams in the country. I just think unless Alabama turns it over, and they are on the road, I think Alabama's just a stronger team. The two things that hit me and I can't get away from is that Alabama can run it like almost nobody in the country with those three guys in the backfield, and Ole Miss can't run it against marginal teams, let alone against Alabama. And I just think that spells doom for Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm interested to see what Alabama's going to do running the ball because they haven't. It hasn't been a major focus, and they haven't really run it that well the first few weeks. They did much better against Florida. I want to see them continue that momentum a little bit and use those backs. And please, Kenyan Drake, hold on to the football. That guy is going to be a big factor on this team this year, Mark, if he can just stay out of trouble. I mean, you saw what he did in 2 plays against Ole Miss. Against Florida, the home run touchdown, then he rushes for a first down before he fumbles, and then you don't see him until the fourth quarter. If he can stay on the field, this Alabama offense, even as effective as it's been, and it almost leads the SEC in yardage per game. It's, I think a third of a yard behind a Texas A&M team in offense right now. But if they can add him, he gives them one more dimension that they don't have, and a guy that can get it out of the backfield, catch it out wide, and he's a home run threat more than anybody else in that roster, I think, when he touches the football.
You're not his agent, are you, Kenyan Drake?
I'm not, Mark. But when you watch him practice, especially, he's got a different gear that nobody else has. Derrick Henry's a big guy and fast. Yeldon is a very good running back. Cooper runs as good a routes as anybody. I just don't think that there's anybody. If I had to have one home run threat on this team, I think I take Kenyan Drake every time. But he's got to hold on to the football. That's what his downfall has been, turning over.
Okay, Ben, so you're headed to Oxford. Do you have pregame going this week?
I don't know about too much pregame. I might try to bounce over, see Katy Perry, your girl. She's going to be the game day picker. So that'll be a big one. I know you're really into I Kissed a Girl when it came out, 6 years ago, I think. But we'll try to make our way around the Grove a little bit and have some fun. It's only my second trip over to Oxford, so we'll see how it goes. But I think the best thing for Ole Miss is that they are playing in Oxford because although they only won 8 times ever against Alabama, they've only won once outside of the state of Mississippi. So this is a big one for me. I'm really looking forward to this atmosphere. I think it's going to be as good as any in the SEC this season. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, Ben, I was actually talking about official work pregame for I-99-1.
Yeah, we're not going to be doing the show this week. Probably going to be doing home. We might make a road trip or two. So no shows. Just going to be floating around, taking in the atmosphere there on the Grove.
And I'll have you know, with a 15-year-old daughter, I'm pretty up on the Katy Perry playlist.
Yeah, sure.
I've got it down pretty well. I've heard them over and over and over and over.
She's pretty good. She's talented, Mark. I'm not going to say.
She's talented.
Not dark in the eyes either.
All right, Ben. Appreciate the time, man. Enjoy the game.
We'll catch up with you later.